So, before cooking a big meal for guests, we usually first taste a small spoon to check if the salt and spices are right. A pilot study is exactly like that in research. It's a small test run of your main study like thesis or research paper. A pilot study is a small-scale, preliminary version of a full research study that is conducted to test the feasibility, design, tools, and procedures before carrying out the main research on a larger sample. It is a trial run where the researcher checks whether the study can actually be done the way it is planned. It focuses on practical issues, not final results. This includes testing things like whether participants can be recruited, whether they understand the questions, whether the data collection method works, and whether the overall process runs smoothly. For example, if your research focuses on customer satisfaction with an online service, a pilot study would involve testing your survey on a small group of users to check if the questions are clear, if people complete the survey, and if the responses are useful. The goal here is not to make conclusions, but to identify problems and improve the study design. A pilot study can be used in both qualitative research, like interviews or focus groups, and quantitative research, like surveys or experiments. Components of a pilot study. One of the key components is feasibility of reaching participants. This means checking whether the right people can actually be found and included in the study. It answers the question, can I reach the group I want to study? For example, if a study is focused on customer behavior for a new mobile service, researchers first test whether they can easily find enough users from different age groups or locations. If only a few people respond or most ignore the invitation, it shows that the recruitment method needs improvement before the full study begins. Another important component is participation and engagement. This looks at whether people who join the study stay involved and complete what is expected from them. It focuses on consistency and commitment. For instance, if a pilot study involves users testing a learning app for 2 weeks, researchers check whether users actually open the app daily or stop using it after a few days. If many participants drop out early, it signals that the design may not be engaging enough or the process may be too complicated. A third component is clarity and effectiveness of research tools. This means testing whether the instruments used in the study, such as surveys, interviews, or tasks, are understandable and useful. For example, in a study about workplace satisfaction, a pilot test might reveal that some survey questions are confusing or too long, causing participants to skip them. This helps researchers revise and simplify the questions before conducting the main study so that the final data collected is accurate and meaningful. Another component is practical execution of the procedure. This focuses on whether the overall process of the study works smoothly in real conditions. It includes timing, instructions, and step-by-step flow. For example, if a pilot study involves observing how employees use a new digital tool, researchers may discover that instructions are unclear or that the tool takes longer to install than expected. These small issues, when identified early, prevent bigger problems later in the full-scale study. There is also the component of acceptability of the study design. This checks how comfortable participants feel with the study. It looks at whether the study feels too difficult, too time-consuming, or too intrusive. For example, in a pilot study testing a health tracking wearable, participants might report that wearing the device all day feels uncomfortable. This feedback is important because even if the tool is effective, it will not work in a real setting if people are not willing to use it. Another key component is data quality and completion. This focuses on whether the collected information is complete, consistent, and usable. For instance, if participants are supposed to fill daily logs but often leave entries blank, it shows that the data collection method needs improvement. Strong data quality in a pilot study helps ensure that the final research results will be reliable. The pilot studies also focus on ethical and practical readiness. This means checking whether consent procedures, instructions, and participant communication are clear and appropriate. For example, if participants are unsure about how their information will be used, researchers refine the consent process to make it more transparent and easier to understand. Overall, all these components work together to answer one main question: can this research be successfully carried out on a larger scale without major problems? Types of pilot studies. One type is a standalone pilot study. In this approach, the pilot is completely separate from the main study. It is done first on a small scale, and the results are only used for learning and improvement. Nothing from this stage is added into the final research results. Another type is an embedded pilot study. Here, the pilot is not separate. Instead, it is included as the early part of the main study. The research starts with a small group first, and if everything works properly, this early data can still be used in the final results. Then there is a randomized pilot study. In this type, participants are divided into different groups by chance, just like in a full research design. The purpose is not to find final answers, but to check if the grouping process, follow-up system, and overall structure actually work properly on a smaller scale before doing it with a large group. Another type is a non-randomized pilot study. In this case, there is no random grouping. Researchers simply test the process, methods, and procedures in a simple and direct way. This type is often used when the main focus is just to see if the study design is practical and easy to carry out before adding more complex steps later. How to conduct a pilot study? To conduct a pilot study, you start by first defining a small trial version of the main study, where everything is tested on a limited scale instead of a full sample. The process begins by selecting a small, relevant participant group that represents the main study population but will not be included in the final research, so the main results are not influenced. Next, you move into a trial setup stage, where all research tools such as questionnaires, interviews, or procedures are fully tested in real conditions to check clarity, timing, and smooth execution, making sure the process matches what is planned for the main study. After that, you go into a preliminary execution stage, where the pilot study is actually carried out exactly like the main study but on a smaller scale, allowing you to observe issues in participation, response quality, and process flow while the study is running. Then comes a basic evaluation stage, where you review the collected information to check if it is usable, consistent, and aligned with the research objectives, focusing mainly on identifying errors, gaps, or weak points rather than drawing final conclusions. Finally, you reach a refinement stage, where you decide what needs to be changed, adjusted, or improved before launching the full main study, and based on this you either modify the design, repeat the pilot with improvements, or move forward to the complete large-scale study.